Why would someone come to LMG for their landscaping project?
So there's a lot of people who do landscaping. I think in our experience, we've developed a good skill set of building a landscape that's actually well thought through. So a couple things that you really want to consider when designing a good landscape are going to be the types of shrubs, right? We want seasonal interest. So a lot of times people don't think about, we want flowers to bloom in the spring, late spring, early summer, late summer, early fall, late fall, and then winter interest, which would be evergreens. So there's two types of main plants, deciduous and then evergreens. Those are the two most common. Evergreens are going to keep their leaves all through the winter. Deciduous are going to lose their leaves. Additionally, there's going to be things to consider, like, are we layering the plants? So you don't want the tallest in the front, you want the tallest in the back, and maybe the next tier of plants is something else with potentially a different seasonal interest. I like to go in patterns of maybe 3s and 5s, so it doesn't look like a plant or two is out of place. You want to look at a landscape and everything feel like it has a purpose. That wall has, you know, a nice 3 shrubs with a nice set of perennials in front of that. When it comes to perennial design, we don't want to build different perennials that are going to be invasive, especially to each other. So when we design perennials, we don't want to put multiple perennials in the same place where they're going to be growing into each other, because that will create a maintenance nightmare down the road. So based on the client that we're working with, we want to be very strategic of how we approach the landscaping. Why don't you talk about when you should trim certain things?
Well, you typically always want to do a spring cleanup. Every spring, you want to come out, make sure all your plants are trimmed back and ready to start their new growth for the year. Then at the end of the year, you always want to do a fall cleanup as well to trim everything back so the dead is gone as well and ready to come back in the spring.
The two main cleanups and then also trimmings throughout the year are very important because everything doesn't get trimmed at the same time. So typically, the rule of thumb would be after the bloom has bloomed, you want to give it a good trim before those new buds set in. People often, wonder why my hydrangeas didn't bloom. Well, because you cut off the buds from last year. One thing that I hear a lot is, how much does landscape cost? Well, it depends what you want, right? Do we want trees, shrubs? How many? Perennials? How big are the trees? How many trees? Do you want grass, seed or sod? Do you want topsoil with that, or is your existing topsoil, is it in good condition? So these are all things we need to consider as well in the design process to give you an accurate estimate, and also just to build you a landscape that's gonna look good throughout the years. Honestly, if we plant plants in crappy soil, not gonna do well on year 2 and 3 and 4. If we really take care of this landscape and do it properly, make sure to break up the roots when we plant, to add good fertilized topsoil, that will allow this landscape to really blossom, no pun intended, bloom. Tell me about the different types of sod that we use on a typical project.
Typically, we use either a bluegrass sod or a tall fescue sod. I would say that the bluegrass sod is a thinner type of grass versus the tall fescue being a thicker type of grass.
So those are some considerations when we're talking about what kind of cedar we're using or what kind of sod are we using after we've torn up everything in a landscape construction project, because that's going to give it that nice finished look.